The World Wide Web is a great resource. One can find just about anything they want. All kinds of people post all kinds of content on the internet. It will likely be a prime venue used for finding information for your various projects and research endeavors while you are at Corban University. This portion will look at how to critically evaluate websites. This evaluation will let you know the validity of information provided on a website. Information from any resource, including the internet, is rarely black and white, good or bad. It tends to be measured on a scale. In some contexts, it is easy to see whether or not a website is authoritative. In others, however, it is not. There are three elements you should consider when discerning whether or not a website has good information: author, audience, and appearance. Let's look at some examples. The author is a critical element in evaluating resources. In many respects, when a book or article is published, the editor or publisher makes certain that the author knows what they are talking about. After all, if the publisher is going to make any money on the resource, the authority of the author is a definite selling point. The internet is different in this regard. As I'm sure you are aware, anybody can post anything on the internet. So how can you tell if a website is done by someone with authority? Let's take a look at this website. Mother Jones, Violent Media is Good for Kids. We're going to be asking these questions. First, who is the author? In this case, the author is obvious, Gerard Jones, a comic book writer. Right there, a flag goes up. What are the author's credentials? None, at least in the area of media and violence. Now, if he were writing in the area of, say, comic book or something of that sort, he might have something to say. A second question that needs to be asked is, does the author have sufficient authority to speak on the subject? In this case, no. Gerard Jones does not have the authority to speak on the subject. After all, this article is not just an opinion piece. If Gerard Jones were an expert on media violence, his opinion would carry some weight. In this case, while the author of this website does have an opinion, that is really all that it is, his opinion. These questions related to Gerard Jones's credibility in the area of media violence make his critique questionable. In many respects, this is not a respectable resource dealing with media and violence and should not be used in an academic paper. This is in many respects what we would call a popular versus a scholarly or peer-reviewed website. It is someone's opinion. That's all it is. It does not have any scholarship behind it, which a scholarly or peer-reviewed resource would. In this case, his lack of credentials on the topic disqualifies his writing. However, there are two other elements that should be looked at also. Secondly is appearance. Is the information on this website presented clearly? Is the text neat, legible, and formatted for easy reading? Are the pages well organized? Are there mistakes in spelling or word usage? In this case, none of these are issues. However, the author's qualifications, or in this case lack of qualifications, speaks stronger than the issue of clarity. The third issue that needs to be looked at is audience. Who is the audience of this resource? It is pretty clear that the audience of this website is the general public. The various advertisements, the fact that it is part of a magazine entitled Mother Jones, all point to the fact that this website is aimed at a general public audience. While it may have some interesting articles, it likely will not go to the depth you need for your research. Going through this grid of appearance, audience, and author, it is fairly certain that this article would not be a good resource for my topic dealing with media and violence. A lot of content on the web is in the form of an article. For example, while this is a website, it is also an article. Many of the same criteria can be used to evaluate it. Let's look at the PDF version of this article though. Again, let's go through the matrix of author, appearance, and audience. The first question is author. Who wrote this article? In this case, Cheryl Olson, who is a professor of psychiatry at the Harvard Medical School. That in and of itself is pretty impressive. This person likely knows what they are talking about when it comes to violence in media. Appearance. There are no ads and there are thorough citations that point to a more scholarly resource. Audience. The language of this article and the clear objective and conclusion in the abstract again point to a more scholarly resource. With that all said, this is a good resource that could be used in an academic paper on violence and media. Where do websites tend to fit in the research triangle? Well, it all depends. Much of the content on the web is very discipline specific. For example, the one website article we looked at falls in with an article at the top of the research triangle. On the other side of things, an article from Wikipedia will fall into the broad end of the research triangle. Wikipedia articles tend to give overviews on issues that do not necessarily cover the depth that is expected in research. When evaluating websites, remember a few key points. Anybody can put anything on the web, therefore it needs to be looked at with a critical eye. Your critical eye should evaluate a website by looking at three aspects: authorship, appearance, and audience. Websites fit into a variety of venues in the research triangle. Because of this, be aware that the web may be providing background information or very specific research-related information. Depending on where you are with your research endeavors, it may or may not fit into what you're looking for.